make a suggestion, just say what year it is and who we're interviewing.
Do I have to start again?
No, well, no, you can if you want, or we could just leave all this in.
All right, this is October 9th. No,
7th.
do I have that?
Cut. Go ahead, take 3.
October 2007 family reunion, 16th family reunion in the Poconos. Okay, we're talking to Bea and Harold Kraus. And as I started, I mentioned that Fanny was the seventh child of Israel and Bathsheba. And they had, I believe, come over in 1923. But Fanny came over a little later. Until she came to America, what can you tell us that you heard of and know about her life there?
Actually, everything that I knew about my mother and other members of our family was preserved in a booklet that I wrote called "Beautiful Family Tree," and if you don't mind, I would really like to start from that point when she comes here, because it's the other, it is written, and I think we will reproduce that book for those people who have never seen the book, has never had the book, and the next time we come, we will bring copies of that. So can we please start with just things that I have heard?
Just about Fanny.
Just about Fanny, right.
Because I'll bring you to the next level after
Okay,
that.
and there might be some stuff, okay. Anyway, one of the earliest things that I heard about my mother, and after she met my father, when they were is that okay?
Well, I was going to bring in about when they met, but that's
Okay,
what I wanted before that. Okay.
I really don't know that much. I don't know that much before
Okay, then
that.
segue into that question I was going to ask, when they met and how they met and where they met.
I think they met at a dance, and my father was a very, very handsome man, and my mother, I think, was quite good looking as well. And something, Rose, you're a couple of years older than I am, and you know more than I know about my parents. They really do. I can remember, hear them talk about how they became engaged, and I think that was very important, because my father really was a romantic. In fact, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. I found an envelope this past week of letters that my father wrote on their trip to Europe on the boat, and how he wrote to my children. He was very much a romantic that I really didn't know while he was living, while we were together. But anyway, he came to Aunt Dana's house. Maybe it was the grandparents, maybe it was Israel and Bathsheba, and he brought a box of candy. And he opened up the box and my mother opened up the box of candy. Aunt Dana was there. I think she was not Aunt Dana at the time. She was just Anna at the time. And he opened up she opened the box of candy and started offering. And of course, Aunt Anna at the time chose the gold-covered candy. And of course, when he said, no, and my mother took that, and it was this beautiful engagement ring that I have today, and I didn't bring it, which I should have. And so that's one of the first things that I remember about their lives before my brother and I were born.
Well, maybe you should hold on to that. I think they can hear me. I was going to ask you next to tell us just a little about Irv when he was born, and then we'll get to you officially.
Well, seeing as 14 months older than me, there's not too much I can tell about him, but I can tell you about our lives, my brother's life and my life together, if that's what you're looking for.
Okay.
Okay. We had and have a very, very close relationship. In our growing up years, I say he's 14 months older than I, so he was born in the Bronx, and he was born at home, because at that time they were mixing up babies, and my mother was afraid that she wouldn't get the right one. Of course, he has such red hair, it would be kind of hard to miss him. But anyway, he was born in the Bronx, and then they moved to Brooklyn, and very shortly after he was born, she became pregnant again and hated the idea. Was very upset by that. And then I was born, on Williams Avenue near the they call it the L there, near the L station there. And my mother told me at that time that it was very hard for her, and Tante Becky was the one who used to come every single day to help. That's Rose's mother, to help. She said, my mother always said, nobody really knew what kind of person and Becky was. Unassuming and never bragged about anything. She just came and she just did it, that kind of thing. Anyway, so I was born, and all our growing up years until we moved. I think it was until we moved to Chicago that Irv and I shared a room. We had single beds, and we had a little table, I think it was like a radio between us, and we always shared a room. And when Irv came down with the chicken pox, still very young, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, they suggested that I go stay with Tante Becky, who lived down at the end of the block. And I said, I can't, I won't be able to sleep without him, I can't do that. And so they gave me the option of either going there and missing school, and going to school, or staying with her and not going to school. And it had nothing to do with going to school, but I knew that there was no way I was going to be able to sleep in the same room, in a room without him, to the point that my father had a cousin come in from California, and that was the very first time that I remember that we were separated, because they put a cot for me in a front room. It was like a sun parlor. They put a cot for Irv there, and this lady was going to sleep in the bedroom, in Irv's bed, and I remember to this day that I cried, because that's the kind of relationship that we had at that time and all our growing up years. One important thing, one important thing I have to tell you is that I remember very clearly that we had a dining room set, and Irv and I were playing under the dining room table.
Get a drink.
And there was a buffet right here. There was a buffet, and it had towels in it. And Irv took, he must have been about, I don't know, 6 years old.
You want the glass?
And he took the towel, and he folded it up, and he put it around his neck, and he was a Hazen. We were not organization people at that time, but I don't know where that came from. But as you all know, he did turn out to be a very fine cantor.
Your father probably took him to listen to cantors. I remember that. I just want to make one correction. It couldn't have been the grandparents' house. It probably was Golda's house that Fanny was at when this was taking place, because the grandparents were gone at that point. I think they were married in 1925, if I remember correctly, because Anna and Abe were, I think, in 1926.
Because Irv was born in 1926.
So it had to be 1925 for the record.
We hope so.
And it was, and it was in Golda's house, I would say, probably, at that time. Everything seemed to start out from Golda's house there. Okay, where did you go to school?
I have to
Bring yourself up to school before you leave
I have
Brooklyn.
to just, what you just said. You said that everything happened in Golda's house. Okay. Some time ago, a couple of weeks ago, Rose and I were in communication, and I said, I really was so sorry. There's a photo in here, in a plastic, take it out. I was so sorry that I never asked my parents where they got married, because I have this wonderful picture that I'm going to show you that has been frustrating me for the last year since my mother passed away.
Oh, yes.
There's a picture here. There's a picture here of my parents in the center with the full wedding dress and my father in the tuxedo.
Abe and Anna.
To the right is Fanny Dubner and Lou. And
no, that's Abe and Anna on the right. On the left, our left, we're looking at it, it's Lou and
to
Ed.
my right, it's Fanny and Lou, and to the far left is Abe and Anna.
Okay.
To mine. Okay, you can figure it out, I'm sure. And I wanted to know where they were married. So I happened to find their marriage license, which I'll circulate later. And I said to Rose, I found out that they were married at 572 Williams Avenue, and she didn't know where that, we had an idea where it
Ben
was,
isn't here,
but
yeah.
we had no idea. Yesterday, I was sitting with Ben, and I said to him, I recounted this story to him. I said, I don't know where they were married. And I said, it was somewhere on Williams Avenue. So I said to him, well, where did you live? And he said, we lived at 572 Williams Avenue before we moved to 591. And that was where they were married. So when you say everything took place in Golda's house, it could have been that it took place in your parents' house at 572 Williams Avenue.
No. Because I remember when my parents came from Ellenville, they came to Golda before they moved into that apartment in 572, which I didn't know. Okay, I want you to bring yourself up to date where you went to school before you left Brooklyn. Okay, what happened where you were going to school?
We went to school on what street? I can't remember the name.
Williams, probably.
No, we were living on Williams Avenue at the time. We were living in
174?
PS 98. PS 98. Saul went there too. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we lived in an apartment. We lived in an apartment building, and I remember we had a piano there because the people had left the piano there. People who had lived there before left the piano there. And we both went to school, and I think it was PS 98. I still have the little pin. And Saul went to school there too. Saul and all his friends who I knew, they were on the same level as I was in terms of class. And it's interesting because Saul was always in like 2A, 3A, and I was always in 2C, 3C. My brother was somewhere in between. He was a year ahead of us, somewhere in between. And it's really interesting. I've been having some sleep problems with creativity, whatever. And just the other day, my daughter called me and she said, you know, Mom, she said, I just heard that people who dream a lot at night, they have very high IQ. And it reminded me that there was a day in elementary school, I think I was in the 2nd or the 3rd grade, and I walked out, I think, to go to the washroom, and Saul was walking there. You know, they used to pull him out of class to do all kinds of things for the teachers because he was so bright that he didn't need to sit in the class. As a matter of fact, he double jumped, you know, and went to a different school. I remain wherever I remain. But anyway, I remember him saying to me, I remember he was carrying a bunch of papers, and he said to me, you know, he said, I was just looking through these papers. They must have told him to do that for some reason. And he says, you know, you have a pretty high IQ. Well, it meant absolutely nothing to me. I had no idea what he was talking about. In fact, I never gave that any thought until this week when my daughter called me. So anyway, we went to school there, and I remember Saul's friend, Irving Feller, who whenever it rained, his mother used to come for him with rubbers and a raincoat. Why do I remember? Why do I have to carry this in my head? But that's one of the things that I remember. And you know, Rose, you say that it has to be, you know, things about my family, but the family, the Israel Bathsheba family, was so involved in our lives that it's so hard for me to divorce myself and to separate myself from that.
Well, anything that involves you, we want to have even a part of your own
Okay,
life.
can I just continue?
You can.
Okay, thank you. Because there was a time there where my mother had what was called a nervous breakdown. And I remember like today that Uncle Abe took us, because he had a car, and he took us to an institution someplace. It was far away, I remember, and my mother had to stay there for a week, and my brother and I and my father were alone in the house. That's when we lived in the 4 flat, also on always lived on Williams Avenue. And I remember the day I came home from school, and I was in the bathroom. The door was locked. We didn't open, you know, we didn't lock the doors, and I was bending over the bathtub with the scrub board and our laundry, I don't know, underwear, sheets, whatever, and I was scrubbing it, and Aunt Anna walked in, and she came into the bathroom, and she started crying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, my father said, you know, he said, I should do the laundry. So she said, please, she said, get up and go out, you know. And she took over the laundry. So that was Aunt Anna, who was also very, very special person to us. There was a time when my father wasn't making a living, and we had to go to, we were going to go to Rockaway. They were going, the Jack and Saul, you know, the family went to Rockaway, and we didn't have the money. And the next thing we knew, we were in a car and we were going for the whole summer because Uncle Abe had paid for us to have a room so that we can go there as well. And I could go on if this is okay. I would like to go on and tell about my experience with my Tante Becky and with Rose. When I graduated from elementary school, for whatever reason, I was sleeping in Uncle Joe and Tante Becky's bedroom. There was a cot there for me, and I don't remember why that was. And it was time to graduate, and I had a graduation dress that we had made. My mother, I was supposed to make it, and you know, at that time they taught us to sew. They thought we were going to be real housewives. They were wrong. They were wrong. But anyway, I needed to have a dress. And so Tante Becky and Rose took me. In fact, the picture of the dress is in there, and they bought me 2 dresses. And one dress was, I'll never forget, it was a blueprint. It's there, and I'm standing like that. That's the dress. We were in Chicago already. I was wearing that dress. And also a blue wool sailor suit dress with the big collar. When it was time for us to move to Chicago, we went on a train. And that blue wool dress with the long sleeves, it was the end of June. That was the dress that I chose to wear because that was my best dress overnight in the train to go to Chicago. So I carried a little bit with me. And even when we first came to Chicago, I cried because I had to leave everybody and leave my friends. And it was Tante Becky who sent the ticket for me to come to them so that I could go to the to Heller's with Rose and Ben, and Sam came later, and Tante Becky, and she would take me in the coat and close up so that I can go to the casino there, because to a certain age you weren't. Wonderful memories of these people.
Okay, wait. Tell us what your father did in Brooklyn, and then tell us what he did when you came to Chicago.
Okay. My father was a wonderful sign painter. In fact, there's a picture in this book of him, of a sign that he made. And my father was early years when Irv and I were still at the age where he would ride a 3-wheeler and I would I would stand behind him. And he had a sign shop across the street from where we had an apartment. He had a sign shop, so we would ride around the corner from the sign shop, and my parents would get very upset because there were gypsies. Literally, I remember gypsies in a store around the corner.
In Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn, yeah, gypsies. So that's one of the things that I remember. And then when we left there and we moved to the Williams Avenue area, there was a problem because neon signs came into being. And when neon signs came into being, there was no more work for sign painters. My father worked. He used to make paper signs for stores that were having sales and stuff like that. And the gold leaf. And let me tell you about the gold leaf. When we were getting married, I worked in an office, and there was a fella there who said, "I'm going to give you a wedding present." I said, "The only thing I want from you is a piece of your artwork." He was a very fine artist. And so he was out of work for 3 days, and he came the next day and he brought me this beautiful painting, color painting, that still hangs above our bed, and absolutely beautiful, put into a white frame. And when my father saw this, he said, "You know, the picture's beautiful." He said, "But the frame does not go with the picture." He said, "Let me take it and I'll take care of it." So he took it and he brought it back. He had gold leaf the entire frame, and when the gold leaf was still wet, he did this with his thumb all the way around. So on this wonderful picture, I have my father's thumbprint all the way around that frame. And it's a treasure. It's a treasure to both of us. And then my father, before we left New York, my father had a gas station. He had a station where they fixed cars. He had a used furniture store. Nothing was working for him. Nothing. We had hardly any money.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Well, we moved in 1941, so it was probably anywhere from 39, 40, around that time. And it was really a very, very bad time for us, and the family was very helpful. Finally, my father's brother, Oscar, who lived in Texas, made uniforms for the soldiers, for the officers. And he said, Morris, he said, you'll come to Texas, you'll be okay. Well, my father went to Texas. He was not okay because Uncle Oscar, who could not sign his name, was really illiterate, but very good in what he did with his company. He had my father being a gopher. My father was very upset. And at that point, here's another one of the families that helped us. Uncle Max wrote to my mother. Max Waprinsky wrote to my mother and said, you will not go, this was like May, he said, you will not go to Texas, you will come to Chicago, Morris will come to Chicago, he will find work here, you will be fine. So before we left New York, we gave up our apartment and we moved in with Uncle Sam. Tante Golda was gone because Tante Golda died before my brother, right after my brother's bar mitzvah. In 39. We moved in with them. We lived with them until June, till we were ready to go. And when we came to Chicago, we lived with Max and Ida Waprinsky, and I slept with my cousin Bibi in the same bed, and my brother Irv slept with Irv Waprinsky at the time in the same bed. My father went to work in No. He went to work first in a place that made refrigerators, right? It was a war factory anyhow, and did very well there. And then when the war ended, the plant was closing down. There was no more work for him, so he got a job in a bicycle store doing I have no idea what. And one day he walks out of this bicycle store. There's a ladder all the way up to the top of the facade of the store, and there's a sign painter up there painting a sign. And my father said, oh, he said, you're painting a sign. He said, how is sign painting business? And the man said it would be wonderful if there were any sign painters around. There were no sign painters being developed at that time because it was something new now to go back to sign painting. And so my father asked where was this company and how could he get in touch with them? And to make a long story short, not only did he get a job with them and do very well, he finally ended up his own store, and he was his own little sign painter, made a big wedding for us, and wonderful people came, and okay, hang on.
We can go on and on from that point, but I think I'm going to fast forward to how you met Harold. We've got to get him into the act too now.
Somewhere, right?
Okay, the reason she wants to do this is because it was all her fault. It was all her fault. She came for Harry's first marriage. She came for Harry's first marriage, right? No, she came for Irv Weprin's wedding. Irv Weprin's wedding. She came for Irv Weprin's wedding. Irv and Ruth Weprin. Yes, it was summertime. It was very hot. And she came on the train. And she came to stay with us. And she decided, she was having a good time, and she decided, gee, I said, you really should stay another couple of days. So she said the only way I could do that would be to go to the train station and change my ticket. Well, we didn't have a car. I mean, there was no way we were going to get her there. But somehow or other, somebody knew somebody who had a car. So she was going to go, this person was going to...
It was a friend of Harry's, I think, that Harry knew and got
whoever.
Well, there's a reason why.
Yeah, she says to me, come on, we're going to go to the train. I said, no, I remember I had washed my hair, long hair. My hair was wet, and I was wearing baby doll pajamas, very hot, no air conditioning, no fast, no nothing. And so I said, you go and I'll be home. And she gets in the car with these people, and would you like to tell I think one of you has to tell the rest of the story.
You think I remember it?
Oh, you remember?
I'll tell the story. You can say because...
No, I remember there was some young men there, and they were talking about going to a picnic. And, no, a dance we were going to go to. A dance
Friday night.
And they were going to be there, and some others would be there. And you weren't in the car. You were a friend of the...
You was in the car.
You were in the car.
Sure.
Okay. And I said, B, I think you should go. I guess I must have had the eye on him already for her. And they came to the dance, But he was, you tell it
Okay,
from
I
there,
gotta take it from that
I
point.
wasn't at that point.
You want to, okay, go ahead, hold it right to your mouth.
Okay, the reason I wasn't a guy, I just returned from Army service. It was in 1946. I just returned, and my brother and I shared a car. So I went along for the ride, and Rose, my brother, and I were in the car going to the train station. I did know that Rose had gone back to B and gave a report about me to B. And she told B that I was going to be at a dance with my brother be there and so forth. What she didn't know is I had a date that night with a blonde, and I was not going to be at the dance. But to go on further, this was I had not met B at that time.
Well, I think it was the next day.
No.
Oh, then you
Okay.
tell it, I forgot.
She came home from this wonderful trip and she said, "Oh, did I meet a fella for you?" And I said, "What?" She says, "Well, we're going to a dance tonight because he's going to be there." And you know what? He kept talking about cooking and baking, and I couldn't believe it. She said, "He was wonderful, and we got to go to this dance." And I'm still, with the long hair. I said, "Rose, I don't do that." And I think I was 18 at the time. I said, "Whatever." I said, "I don't go to dance." "No, you got to go to this dance. You got to go to the dance." So, okay, got on the streetcar, we went to the dance, and she looks around, he's not there. But his brother was there with this other guy who was really a nerd. I mean, I was sitting with this other guy, I don't remember dancing with him, and this other guy says to me, he says, that's, next weekend is the 4th of July, and we're going to the Indiana Dunes for the 4th of July. Would you like to go? And I didn't have anything to do. I said, "Yeah, I suppose." Yeah, he said, "Yeah, you come. Okay, good." So they picked me up in the car. And this is so bizarre, and you don't have to believe it if you don't want to believe it. But this is what happened. We came to the dunes. I came out of one car. He was about 3 cars away, and I did not know him. He did not know me. He got out of the car. I got out of the car, and the setup was that our eyes met, and it was the strangest thing when our eyes met. And that was the end of it. We finished, I was with this guy and he was with this blonde whatever. And then it got dark and they built a fire. And I'm sitting on the blanket, the nerd is somewhere and I have no idea where. Maybe he went to get a marshmallow too, I don't know. All of a sudden, along comes this person who I had no idea who he was. Comes this person, I don't know at that point that this is who she's talking about. And he brings me a toasted marshmallow. And, "Oh, thank you very much." And that's it, and he goes away. We don't have a conversation. 2 days later, this was like on a Thursday, 3 days, it was a Sunday. Again, I'm with the long hair, with the wet long hair and the baby doll pajamas, Sunday afternoon, and the doorbell rings. And my mother goes out on the landing, and she comes back and she says, "I don't know," she says, "Epis, a nice looking young man is here." So I said, "I have no idea who that is." I said, "Go down and ask him what his name is." So she went down, she came back, did not know. And so I got dressed and I went down and I realized that this was the fella from the marshmallow. And we started to talk and he said, "Would you like to go to the museum?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess, okay." And I got dressed real fast and I go down and guess what? Waiting outside was Harold Pearl. So I had a Harold on one hand and I had a Harold on the other hand. And this is how we dated for at least 3 weeks or more. As we walked that Sunday, he was holding my hand already. We dated 3 weeks like that until finally I said to him, "You know what?" I said, "I don't need 2 Harolds. What is this?" So he says, "Well, do you know somebody?" Because Harold Pearl's mother said to me, "If you'll find a girl for my hair, I will give you Schatzringel." So I said, "I got this cousin B. I got to do this." And B's in the morning, B would have bacon and eggs. At night, she would have barbecued ribs. Hersh is Orthodox. He's Shomer Shabbos, okay? So I figured this is never going to work, but I'm going to get rid of him. Wait, I'm going to get rid of him. So I told Bibi, we got this date for her, and she says, "Okay." And so we make up, and then Saturday night after Shabbos, we're going to go to this place. Downtown Chicago. We go downtown Chicago, we go downstairs in that Rathskeller, it was called. Hersh went down to the Rathskeller. And we're sitting at the table there ordering, and whatever it was we ordered, and he ordered a lettuce and tomato sandwich. And the waitress comes and she brings some lettuce, tomato sandwich, and of course he opens it up and there's bacon in there. So he calls the waitress, no, he said, I told you I just want lettuce and tomatoes, I don't want this. And so the waitress goes to reach to take the sandwich to go give him a new one. He said, no, he says, you leave the sandwich here and you go bring me a lettuce and tomato sandwich. And okay, so anyway, they had an engagement party and everybody said 6 months for that marriage and the marriage would be over. It's now going to be next June, will be 60 years for them. And I want to tell you such respect I have for that woman that you have no idea.
All right, we have to move along a little more quickly. So we're going to ask Harold to give us a quick 2-minute rundown on his life before he met Bee. It was not 2 minutes.
Let's go on. Or do you want to start?
We'll give you 3.
Do you want to start with Iwo Jima, Okinawa?
Fast
The point is,
rendition.
a fast breakdown, okay? No, I spent, before I came home, I spent about 4 years in the service. Before I went into service, I was working in an aircraft plant in San Diego, building B-24s, they call it PBYs. There's nothing much. I went to high school. I was in the National Honor Society. But the point was that my dad told me, he says, when you finish high school, that's it. You go to work. There was no such thing as going on to college. You had to bring money into the house. And that's something I remember to this day when he said, go to work and bring money into the house. Forget about school. So I never had the opportunity. And my schooling began after I was married. I finally got my degree in night school, going every time in night school for, I forget how many years it was, until I had 132 hours of credits at a place called Loyola University in Chicago, and I finally got my degree. And of course, B also was started when the children were born. When Meryl, our youngest, started kindergarten, she went on, she got her degree, and she went and got her master's, and here we are today writing books and doing other things.
And when and where were you married? Give us.
The marriage took, you want to talk about that? Okay, you got it.
Just before we got married, I got to get Uncle Morris's family into helping us also. When we became engaged, we decided that we're going to have to get married in February because Saul and Jack and Shirley and Rose, they were in college and it was intercession at that time. So we got married on February 7th, which was a big mistake because it was a blizzard. It took them 24 hours on the train to get there. But when we became engaged, we went to New York. I took them to New York to get the okay from the rest of the family, from Uncle Joe and Tante Becky and all of these people.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and the thing was that Uncle Morris was in the clothing business at the time. He made coats, ladies' coats. And so I had saved from my little bit of work that I worked, I had saved $500. I took the $500. My parents were with us, and they took us down to Uncle Morris, and Uncle Morris took us into the next office because in that next factory, they were making fur coats. And I took the $500 and I bought the most beautiful muskrat coat that I wore to my wedding at Gewürz's restaurant upstairs. And the whole family came, and Fanny and Shirley came. Rose was my maid of honor. She was, I think, the matron. No, she wasn't married. She was a bridesmaid. Jack and Saul were both the whole New York contingent. And when the night came, the night before the wedding, Fanny pushed everybody out of that little bedroom that had no door. That's where I slept. And she said, everybody, you go sleep on the floors and on the couch. The bride has to sleep in the bed.
Sleep in another bedroom.
No, that's not what happened.
Wait, she's like the little boy in the Purdue commercial. That's not the way it happened.
Did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, I have to say something here. The $500 went for fur coat was supposed to be her dowry.
That was it. And we got married on February 7th. Kanahara will be our 60th wedding anniversary, and we're just very proud of that.
In 08?
In 08.
08.
In 08.
Okay,
yes.
a quick rundown now of your grandchildren, your children, your grandchildren.
Okay, I told you yesterday, but I'll tell you real fast again. We'll start with Alan. He was our firstborn, and today he is a director of technology in Northern Illinois University. He is also an associate professor at Northwestern University. He is called upon to teach classes in technology. His wife, Ann, just took her master's in elementary education, and she puts on shows with those children. She's very good at what she does. Their eldest, David, is going for his master's in library science. He graduated from Knox and did a year and a half at AmeriCorps in Brooklyn, New York. He was interviewing, preserving, just as we are doing here, and doing a lot of research for the JCC there. And Susan graduated from Ithaca, immediately moved to California, where she had already done 2 internships, and got a job within 3 months working on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Meryl and Don live in South Haven, Michigan, where we have our summer home. When we bought our home, they moved back from Connecticut, and she's a very successful broker. As I told you last night, she was named top broker for 2006 in this little town that have a lot of brokers, because it's a big, it's a famous resort town. They just built their own house, and her husband Donald did most of it, so it's just magnificent. Their 2 boys live in Kalamazoo. Brian, the eldest, bought a house about 3 years ago, and he repairs computers. And his brother Eric is very good at restaurant business, but right now he's doing this, that, and the other thing, living in an apartment with his girlfriend. And everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Thank God we're all in fairly good health, and life is beautiful. Life is truly beautiful.
Okay, you kind of brought us up to date with the things that you're doing outside of that, with your books and all that. Is there anything else you want to add to it now?
Yeah, just
Just
one
to
thing.
finish up. And if anyone else has any questions to ask them, we'll do that.
Anything you want to know about both of us and our books, we have a website, and it's called Kraus, no E at the end, krausbooks.com. And what we're doing now, as I say, we are street people. We sit outside and autograph books, and it has been wonderful. I've been doing that now for, I don't know, the last 6 or 7 years, and Harold just started 2 years ago. And he goes to shul on Saturday morning there, and then he comes and he sits with me, and he sells his books, and it's wonderful. If anybody has...
And if anyone knows a director, producer of plays, I gotta play like to
That's the next
raise your
project.
hand.
Get
That's the next
Susan
project.
to do that for you.
We have an actress.
If there's any questions,
I
we'll be
think
happy.
we've kind of covered everything now, since you also gave us yesterday. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, we'll put the mic back to you now and continue.
With Roly Poly.